All right, so we have one final presentation this afternoon, and that's from me. I know it's the one you've been waiting for. It's awesome. So thank you for sticking around. I definitely appreciate it. I think it's a real testament to our community, the things that John was just talking about, and this really is an ability for you to contribute to the project. When I think back to how I first joined Chef, I was definitely in a place, actually before I used Chef, I was hired to run customer support. I was the director of customer support at a stealth startup. The most amazing thing about this stealth startup is it was stealth, so we couldn't talk about it, which also meant that we didn't have any products. So I was, and you might understand from that also that we didn't have any customers. So being the director of customer support at this stealth venture-backed startup, I felt like I'd landed the dream job of my life. It was amazing. It lasted 2 days because 2 days after I was hired, the CEO came to me and said, the developers who got us funding that allowed us to hire a director of customer support, I said, yeah, I know those guys. He said, yeah, I hate them. I've just fired them. You're now the most technical person on staff. But don't worry, we've hired in a firm to take their prototype and turn it into a product. But we are going live in 6 weeks, and you are to build us a production infrastructure on which to deploy this application. So that day, that very moment, was the day I became a sysadmin. And I was a very shitty sysadmin. Although I knew I was the best sysadmin in the world, I was certainly the best sysadmin at my company. I knew the infrastructure better than anyone else, and I knew it because it was built lovingly with copy and paste from one SSH window to another. It was an amazing feat. And someone came to me at one point who he had actually been mentoring me on how to actually become a sysadmin, so I'm forever grateful to him. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to him very often. He came to me and he said, you know, Nathan, there's this thing called Puppet, there's this other thing called Chef. You should maybe look into these things because they can automate all of the things that you're doing by copy and paste and putting commands into a wiki so that you remember them later. And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, Tom, I am too busy to automate. And I meant it. Like, it's funny, it's true, you can laugh at that. It's ridiculous, but it's exactly what I meant. Later, and by later I mean, I don't know, 2 years later, I actually started using Chef, and it was amazing. And I also remember the day where I became a professional, and that was the day where I realized that my next change to the production infrastructure was going to start with a Git commit. That was amazing. I became a free man that day, I think. And one of the things that I did shortly after I started using Chef was I wrote a cookbook that solved a problem that I had, and I shared that cookbook on the supermarket. And then this really weird thing happened. Someone else who I'd never met, who lived on the other side of the country, came to me and said, hey, that cookbook that you wrote, thanks for your contribution. Let me tell you all the ways that it's wrong. Except she didn't say those words. She said, you know, you could change this cookbook like this, and it could do this instead, and you should think about this. And it was amazing, and I felt immediately welcomed, and I was part of this Chef community. And it was this amazing thing that all I wanted to do was that from that point forward. And so the next step in my journey towards joining Chef was I kind of muscled my way onto a podcast, a little podcast called The Food Fight Show. Brian Barry had started it, again, someone who I'd never met, and he had asked for some help on the show, and so I offered help in one episode, and then the next episode I said, I'll be happy to come back on, and he said, whoa, we needed help for one episode, dude. Like, it's cool, you don't have to be here all the time. But I also didn't listen to him, and so I showed up at every episode, and so now the show pretty much I run, although not nearly as much as I'd like to anymore. But it was right before the first Chef Conf when Brian and I were finally going to meet in person. We'd never done so before because he lived in Rome at the time. But he flew over to the States and he called me up and he said, Nathan, have you ever thought about working at Opscode? And I told him, Brian, come on, first, there's no way I'm smart enough to work there. That's a ridiculous idea. Second, if I joined that company, the thing I would have to do is travel all the time. And I have a family at home, and that would just not work for me and my family. And so then the thing that I did within a year of that was join Chef, travel all the time. I'm still not sure if it works well for my family, but this has been an amazing community to be a part of. It turns out I'm still not really smart enough to work here, and Barry's not in the room, so I can say that. So it's cool. But this community is incredible, and I'm glad that you are all part of this community. And you don't need to contribute code to be part of our community. What you need to do is care about the craft of what we're doing here. You need to care about the systems that we're operating. John has said it before, you are the experts in the infrastructure of your organization, just like I was the expert in the infrastructure for my organization way back at that stealth startup. Hopefully you're a little better than me. The fact that you're here in this room proves that you are. So what I'd like to do over the next 20 minutes or so is just talk about some of the ways that you can also be involved in the Chef community without even necessarily contributing any code. How do you build community within your organization? How do you build your bonds stronger within the community? And I'd like to sort of step back before we go there and talk a little bit about DevOps. So I think that DevOps is, first, I think it's a terrible word. I think that when we say the word DevOps, what you think of are development and operations. And these are two different roles that absolutely play an important part in your business. But DevOps goes beyond just development and operations. I really think that it's everyone in your organization needs to think about DevOps, needs to think about what you're trying to deliver to your customers. And we always fight over this definition of DevOps. What does DevOps even mean? Does it mean automation? Does it mean test-driven development? Who knows? This is the definition that we use at Chef. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations, and it's born from the practices or the experiences of its practitioners. And if we break that down, first, it's a cultural and professional movement. It's not a tool. It's not a tool. It's focused on how we build and operate high-velocity organizations. It's not just about the systems that we build. And it's certainly not just about building them, and it's certainly not just about operating them. It's about all of these things, and it's the entire organization. What are the workflows that we go through to deliver to our customers? And finally, it's born from the experiences of its practitioners. The DevOps that John practices at Etsy is nowhere near the DevOps that gets practiced at Chef, or like the DevOps that I practiced back when I was the sole sysadmin at that organization. DevOps truly is different in each organization with each team. There are, however, some universal principles that apply across DevOps, and I want to talk about a couple of those. I won't talk about all of them, just a few. The first one is that with DevOps, we put people first. We know through research, we know through our own experiences that happy people will build better products whose outcome will be better companies. And it's not just the people building and operating those systems. We do care about the people on the other end of those systems as well. We cannot lose sight of the people for whom we're building these systems and these applications. One other key principle to DevOps that we've talked about a lot today is diversity. We absolutely need the diversity of opinion, the diversity of backgrounds, the diversity of humans around the table when we sit down and describe our workflows, make our decisions. With this, we make better decisions. It leads to much better outcomes. So how can you start building a community around DevOps within your organization? How can you participate in the larger DevOps community or in the larger Chef community? I'm going to talk through a couple of ways. And these are some of the things that we do with our own customers to help them form communities. We talk about sharing things. One of the things that we do when it comes time to share, I'm not going to read everything on this slide, so you're welcome to do so, but one of the things we do with sharing, we encourage demo days. And we do these demo days internally at Chef. And let me just describe how they happen. The way that they work is this. Every engineer who has something to demonstrate on a weekly basis will join a call. This call is open, it's a video call that's open to the entire company. And if you have something to show, you'll write down what it is on a card, we'll stick it on a Kanban board, we'll pull the first card off the top of the list, and that person has 5 minutes to demonstrate a product feature or something that they've built. There's this really cool thing that happens when you do this. First, you open it up to everyone in the company. You get everyone from marketing, finance, invite everyone in and let them see the progress that we're making as a team. There's a kind of funny story that happened in one of these demo days. We had an engineer who had been working on a special project to help fuel the love of Chef. And the way that we were fueling the love of Chef was by putting up a website that would allow you to fill in your address and get some stickers from Chef. We call it Happy Laptop. So happylaptop.chef.io. And this engineer who had built out the system came to demo days and was demonstrating Happy Laptop. Well, there was a little problem with this demonstration, and that was that the URL that was used in the demonstration was publicly available on the internet. That wasn't actually the problem. The problem was no one in the back-end systems was actually ready to ship stickers yet. We hadn't figured out what that process was going to be. Midway through our demo days, someone was so excited they tweeted about Happy Laptop. And a couple other people were also very excited about this. So this made it out onto the web. That day, we figured out how we would actually ship stickers to folks. So that's pretty good. Like, it's a really great way for you to take this idea of how are you building products, how are you building things iteratively, and share them with your organization. It also helps you build things iteratively because you have something to demo. You have a feature that you can demo. And you can show up week after week. And you can actually watch, it's fun to watch features as they evolve from one week to the next during this iterative process. So that's my quick story about sharing. Let's talk about coaching next and some mentorship. So with DevOps, sometimes as you're going through the transition, it's important to start with one team. Maybe you'll build a DevOps team. Does anyone here work on the DevOps team at your organization? Yeah. There's a time in my past where I would have said, you're stupid and you're doing it wrong. But I don't believe that anymore. I think that the DevOps team, if you think about the silos that we have in our organizations, the way that you solve silos, if the way that you solve silos is by standing up another silo and calling it the DevOps team, you're probably doing it wrong. But that's probably not what you're doing. You have to start with a team that is cross-functional, that can go through this transition. How do you work in these new ways? How do you work with these new tools? How do you work with this new culture and people? And there are organizations that we see that are very large. Target is a good example. What Target will do is they've pulled together what they call the DevOps Dojo. So they teach people how to do DevOps, how to work in these new ways with these new tools. They have a team of specialists that runs this dojo. And what they'll do is they'll pull employees from various organizations around the company, bring them in for 6 or 8 weeks of very intensive training, build a new feature, do it in this new way. And then when you're done, you've graduated out of the dojo, take those skills back to your home team, back to your home part of the organization. And so what happens when you do this is that you can see that the ways of DevOps, the practice, the culture, the workflow, the tools, all start to spread throughout your organization. This is a very powerful thing to do. And then finally, we have this idea of nurturing. So how many have been to a DevOps Days before? These are great conferences where you can go and learn all about the practice of DevOps. You can meet with your peers or people that you aspire to be peers to. And I'll tell you what, you are peers to those people already. We are all very special in our own way. And at DevOps Days, what we can do is come together and share, just like we're going to do tomorrow during our open spaces and actually during the happy hour. And of course, it's been happening all day, during the breaks, during the lunches. You've been meeting new people, having great new conversations. Some other things that you can do to help contribute to the community, to help build a community within your own organization, include sharing the knowledge that you've obtained. So one of the things that we encourage is write blog posts. When I first started my blog, one of the challenges that I had was remembering who the audience for my blog was. But again, I had a mentor that came and told me and reminded me that the audience for your blog is you. It's probably future you. And what I would do is start blogging about the things that I'd learned. And so then, when I forgot some things that I learned, I had this great source of reference. And the other amazing thing that happens is other people might end up reading it and gain something from that. And think about the blog post that you wrote that maybe took you 2 hours worth of time. Think about the impact that that can have across the community. How many hours of work can you save by simply taking a moment to write down what you've learned and sharing that openly with the community? Of course, everyone should use Slack because the number one rule of DevOps is you cannot DevOps unless you are a slacker. So we all have to remember that. Just think about these new other tools, these new ways of working. Of course, I have to plug podcasts. I learn a lot about DevOps. I learned a lot about my craft. I learn a lot about you from listening to various podcasts. And there are so many podcasts in this DevOps space. Many of us have to commute to work. I used to commute to work. When I came to Chef, I now work at home. So now I long for the days of long grass that needs mowing, laundry that needs folding, dishes that need doing, so I can catch up on all of my podcasts. Another great way to get involved and to contribute to the community is by going to meetups. Now, I talk to people all the time, and I encourage them to go to meetups. And the look I see on many people's faces says this: Nathan, you just told me to leave work and go to work. What I want to do is leave work and go to pub or go to family, because that's better. Well, when it comes to pubs, sometimes meetups happen in pubs, so like you can win both ways. But you shouldn't think about meetups as work. You should think about them as an opportunity for you to get together and learn more, help yourself get better at your craft. Go learn about how other organizations are attacking the problems and the issues that you have within your own organization. Go to listen, go to learn, go to present. You might also say that, I don't have anything worth presenting. I don't have anything worth sharing. Everyone there is smarter than me. They know more. I call bullshit. Get up and share what you've learned. Share your process. Talk about the things that you're doing. We can all learn from that. And how many of you work at a place that is currently hiring? Yeah. Another great thing to do at meetups is to go and find people that you might want to hire. In fact, if your company is hiring and having a tough time of it, maybe sponsor a meetup. Bring people into your office. Show them what a great work environment you have. Or scare them off with your work environment, I'm not sure. But be honest with them. Bring them into your office. Show them around. Another thing that I have seen in practice a bit and would love to see a lot more is this idea of an exchange program. So I know Twitter and Etsy have done this before, and they've done it with software engineers. An Etsy software engineer went to Twitter and spent 2 weeks there. Now, John's in the room, so some of this story might, in fact, be a story, but we're all just going to believe all the words I say. So this Etsy engineer went to Twitter for 2 weeks and worked as part of the software development team shoulder to shoulder with Twitter. And then after some time, a Twitter engineer came out to Etsy and did the same thing. Well, what about our craft? What about in operations? Could you go to Etsy and work shoulder to shoulder with them? Could they come to you? Maybe not Etsy, because maybe that's a long way to travel. Maybe there's another organization that is here today in this room that you could go and work with. Back when I ran real infrastructure, I did go to Etsy. I put my operations team and we hopped on a train. We went up to Brooklyn. We sat shoulder to shoulder with Etsy. We helped them deploy code. We talked to them about our deployment process. We looked at their monitoring and our monitoring. Frankly, it was one of the best days in terms of building our team and having our team level up professionally. So go and share with other organizations that are near to you, that maybe you're in the same industry, maybe you're in a completely different industry, but share with those folks. The community is the heart and soul of Chef. Chef software would not exist without the community. Chef, the framework, would not exist without the community either. But without the company, the framework would carry on because of the community. And Barry showed you some of our recipe for success, and he showed you that Fueling the Love of Chef was one of the first pages in that book, in our little cookbook that is our recipe for success. This is another page from our recipe for success. As a company, we recognize that the community is where it's at. Most of us in the company came from the Chef community, and we always want to give back to that. As John mentioned, in our open source process, no employee has greater power than a community member. As it turns out, we are employees of Chef, but what we are first are community members, members of the Chef community. So what I'd like to do today is inspire you, encourage you, challenge you to get involved. Get involved, be active in the community. Step out of the echo chamber, step out of your comfort zone. And I'll quote one of the co-founders of OpsCode and my former boss, Jesse Robbins. Don't fight stupid, make more awesome. So I encourage you to do that. That's what I have for you this afternoon. Before we break, what I want to do is talk about what's going to happen for the rest of our time together. So I'm going to go in reverse order. First, I'm going to talk about tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to have open spaces. If you have never been to open spaces, if you've never participated in a conference that has open spaces, as I describe them, what you might decide is that you shouldn't turn up tomorrow. And I will tell you that you are wrong. You must come back tomorrow. Open spaces are an amazing thing. So what we will do tomorrow morning, beginning at 9 o'clock, we'll have what we call our opening circle. And during the opening circle, I will invite everyone in this room to propose a topic. And the rule is that you must be passionate enough about that topic to start a conversation. You don't need to be an expert in that topic. Your topic may be a question, but you propose that topic, and then what we will do as a group, collectively, as a community, is organize a schedule. We have 5 or 6 different breakout rooms. We'll organize our schedule for the day, and then we will break out into those breakout sessions and discuss those topics. We'll get to work on them. We'll ask the questions. We'll learn from one another. We'll share information with one another. Tomorrow is the day where you stop being a consumer and you start being a builder. Tomorrow is the day where you decide what we will talk about. You help us understand what's right for the community. How do we move this community forward? How do we help you get better? And by we help you, I mean how do we all help one another get better? We'll then come together at the end of the day. We'll share what we learned. We'll share our commitments to one another. John committed to helping you find a way to contribute code to Chef, if that's something you're interested in. And he committed me to do the same thing. It was awesome. So we'll do that at the end of the day tomorrow. And just to give you a little taste of what that might feel like, we're going to do 2 things this afternoon. The first thing we're going to do is give you beer. Right? Beer? Yeah? Okay. So beer always helps. It's always a good lubricant to get the conversations going. But what we're going to do also is break up into some pre-selected discussion groups. And here's the thing I will encourage you. If you look at this list of discussion groups and find that none of those are for you, that's fine. Stay and have a beer with us. Find a group of people that want to talk about some other topic and talk about that topic. So we're going to break out here, right? Out in this area. There are signs for each one of these topics. I say these words with total conviction. There are signs out here. Let me just walk through what we have. So we have compliance as code. We have cooking with friends, the chef partner ecosystem, like VMware, OpenStack, if these are things that interest you. We'll talk about chef cookbooks. What's the process of making a better cookbook? How do you write cookbooks? How do you share cookbooks? And so forth. We can have a discussion on transforming your enterprise. How do you build community within your enterprise? How do you undertake this transition towards DevOps? If you want to learn more about delivery, there'll be a section there. And then we also have an AMA, or an Ask Me Anything. I don't understand what that term LWRP means, and people keep using it around me. What does LWRP mean? If you're not sure, go to the Ask Me Anything session. We'll have folks there that can answer your questions, but also maybe you'll come and contribute an answer to the question as well. So this is what I want to leave us with today. We're going to break now, go into happy hour and those discussion groups, and then we'll reconvene right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thanks very much.